is Gemara in Kesubos Daf. Hey, we're holding on the bottom of Daladim and Beis, 2 lines from the bottom in which the Gemara is quoting the aforementioned Brisa, and where we're going to explain the din in depth. Amar Mar, what do we quote? Ben kach lo yivel lo be'erev Shabbos lo b'motzai Shabbos. We said irrelevant to when the chasana actually takes place, the first bia, the first act of intercourse, should not occur neither on erev Shabbos, Friday night, nor on motzai Shabbos. Says the Gemara, 1 second. I understand. Why shouldn't you have the first act of intercourse on a Friday night? Because it's a chabura. It's causing the woman to bleed. Because the first act, we have the dam besulim on the first time that they have tashmish, the first time they sleep together. That dam besulim is an act of chabura. It's a wound in the woman's body, which we're going to deal with in a little bit. But says the Gemara, it's understandable why they should not be together for the first time on Friday night. What's the problem? Why can't they have the first time of bia on Motzai Shabbos? Amar Rav Zira explains Rav Zira as we turn over to today's daf. Hey, about Aleph Mishom Cheshbainos, because of Cheshbainos calculations. Look at the top. Rashi explains She'im Yikanis Motzai Shabbos, and I have to correct myself. I said whenever the wedding's happening. No, we're discussing here when the first act of bia is, meaning right after the chasana. So says Rashi She'im Yikanis Motzai Shabbos, if they're going to get married on Motzai Shabbos, Yas Suda Balayla. When's the suda of the wedding going to be? Right after Shabbos. And what's going to happen? We know what you're worrying about the whole Shabbos. And the whole Shabbos you're going to be worrying and calculating the incredible halacha on Shabbos that one has to watch his mouth. Your mouth in Shabbos is different during the week. You can't just talk about anything. You can't do calculations. You can't do business. You can't sit on Shabbos to talk about your chasana. Says the Gemara, that's why you shouldn't get married on a Motzai Shabbos. No one should pause here because this is not the halacha. 1 second, says Abaye. This is the mitzvah. It's a mitzvah to get married. It's a mitzvah to have a suda at the wedding. And such a mitzvah, there's no problem talking about it, even though it's a cheshbain, it's a calculation. How could that be? Asked Abaye. Rav Chisda, Rav Amnuna, Damri Tavayo, they both said, you're allowed to calculate mitzvah-related matters on Shabbos. And similarly, now we're going to have a few rayos. You're allowed to give tzedakah on Shabbos, stipulating to give tzedakah, even though it's calculations. You're allowed to go to the shuls to discuss public matters, even though there's going to be money talked about, because it's a mitzvah. You're allowed to deal with bikuach nefesh. You can publicize matters of Pikuach Nefesh on Shabbos. You're allowed to go to the amphitheaters and you're allowed to go to the circuses. For which reason? In order to deal with matters of the public with Shabbos. You're allowed to make shidduchim on Shabbos. And for a young child to learn, to learn a profession. So ask the Gemara basically one big question of Abaya. How are you explaining to me that the reason why you're not allowed to get married in a Motzai Shabbos is because we're afraid? What are you going to do on Shabbos? You're going to do cheshbonis, you're going to do calculations. Says the Gemara, but a cheshbon of a mitzvah is mutter. Answers the Gemara, you're absolutely correct. Elamar of Zira, a different reason you cannot get married on Motzai Shabbos. We're afraid that in your confusion, I should say confusion, but in your apprehension and your anxiety, I should say, like Rashi says, 5 lines into the narrow lines, you're going to be tarud, you're going to be busy thinking about the wedding, and you're going to forget it's Shabbos, Rahman al-Islam, and you're going to go to shech the chicken for the meal. That's why you can't get married for the first time. Now I can't get married on a Motzai Shabbos. If a Yom Kippur falls on a Monday, Shabbos, you should push off Yom Kippur to Tuesday. Why? Because we should be nervous that you're going to shecht on Yom Kippur, because if we should avoid Yom Kippur being on a Monday, because again, you might come to shech the bird on Shabbos. Because why? Let's look at Rashi. Rashi over here speaks out. What we're nervous over here is that before Yom Kippur you have to eat a lot. So if Yom Kippur is on a Monday, Sunday is Erev Yom Kippur. If Sunday is Erev Yom Kippur, you have to have a big meal right after Shabbos. So I asked the Gemara, we should be nervous that on Shabbos you're going to shecht for that big meal on Sunday in preparation for Yom Kippur on Monday. So if Yom Kippur falls on a Monday, we should push it to Tuesday. Answers the Gemara, simple answer. Hasam to the lavshay leitarid. You're making a meal for yourself, for your family. We're not worried they're going to be so anxious and nervous that on the Yom Kippur you're going to come to the, God forbid, Shechta and Shabbos. But halcha to l'acherim tarid, you know, when you're making a party, you're making a meal for many, many people. There's a high level of tarid, a high level of preoccupation and anxiety. And that's when we're concerned. Inami, another answer, Hasam Isle Ravcha, and this answer I'm sure many people were bothered by. By Yom Kippur, when's Yom Kippur? Sunday night! So Isle Ravcha, there's plenty of time from Shabbos to then, so we're not nervous. Halcha over here, we're talking about the Chasnas Motzei Shabbos, Lesle Ravcha, there's no time. Says the Gemara, and that's why we're concerned you're going to come to Shecht. Says the Gemara, Hasha Dasla Achi, now that you came up to this reasoning, Erev Shabbos Nami, and Erev Shabbos as well, you should not get married. Meaning, we started off saying, why should you not get married on a Friday night? Because the first act of intercourse wounds the woman, causes blood. Says the Gemara, no, I have a simpler reason. If we have to be concerned that it's going to go into Shabbos and he might shecht on Shabbos. And that is the reason why you neither can get married on the first time have the intercourse on a Friday night, nor on a Motzei Shabbos. The final reason is because we're afraid you're going to be so preoccupied, you're going to be Mechalel Shabbos. Ibayilo asked the Gemara, Besula neseis b'ravi v'nevels b'ravi, when our Mishnah said that a Besula, a virgin, a woman who never had relations, gets married on a Wednesday, ask the Gemara, so the Chasana is on Wednesday by day. When is the first act of intercourse? On Wednesday by day. And we're not nervous that in the amount of time from Wednesday day to Thursday morning when the Bezdin convenes. And of course, because the whole convention, the reason why we're making the Chasana on Wednesday, like we spoke about extensively in Daf Beis, is so that if there's an issue, he doesn't find dam, he doesn't find blood, he doesn't think that she is indeed a Besula, he's nervous that maybe she was Mizana Tachtov, will go to Bezdin, but we're not nervous from the short amount of time from a Wednesday to Thursday morning, we're not nervous. Or there's another way of learning the Mishnah. Besula Niseis B'Ravi, they get married on a Wednesday. And when's the first act of intercourse? V'Nevel's B'Chamishi. And Rashi says this means on Wednesday night they have the first act of Bia, so that on Thursday morning right away they could go to Bezdin. So ask the Gemara a fundamental question. When our Mishnah taught us that the Chasna should be on a Wednesday, ask the Gemara, is the wedding specifically on a Wednesday, so that the first act of intercourse should be on a Wednesday night, the closest in proximity to Thursday when the Bezdin will convene, or no? Or is it okay if they sleep together on Wednesday by day? And that amount of time, we're not nervous that they're going to calm down. Tashema says the Gemara, let's bring a riot. Dani bar kapara, Besula neseis b'ravi, v'nevels b'chamishi. He speaks out explicitly that when is the first act of intercourse of Bia is on Wednesday night. Hayil v'nemra bracha l'dagim. But wait, why does it say that they're together on a Wednesday night? The reason is because Thursday was the day of creation, which is a special bracha of dagim, the special bracha of being fruitful. Almana similarly says his Bryce, and neseis b'chamishi, gets married on Thursday, and she has intercourse on Friday. Why? Because that's when there was a blessing to the person, the bracha to Adam. So now the Gemara is medayik, and the Gemara infers from this brisa that time of misham bracha. It sounds like, what's the reason they should sleep on a Wednesday night on a Thursday? What's the reason Alman should sleep on a Thursday night or Friday? Because of the special bracha of Dagim, the special bracha of Adam. But it sounds like we're not nervous they're going to calm down. It sounds like we do not have to be concerned that if they sleep together on a Wednesday afternoon, that the amount of time that could elapse between a Wednesday afternoon and a Thursday morning, maybe you won't come to Bezdin. Says the Gemara, 1 second. If what you're saying is accurate, if what you're saying is correct, why did the Almana do everything a day later? The Almana should do the same thing because it's the bracha to the Dagim of being fruitful on Thursday. Answers the Gemara, no, bracha da Adam adifalei. It's better for the bracha that's on a Friday on a Thursday night. And therefore, since in Almana we're not concerned to go to Bezdin, what's the difference? Of course, because by a Besula, the first time there's the intercourse, that's when there's the Dam Besulim. That's when there's the problem, maybe she was Mizana. That's when the whole creation should be on a Wednesday before Thursday when they go to Bezdin. But in Almana, who already had relations, isn't that concerned. So it's pushed to the next day. Why? Because the bracha da Adam is better. Inami, another reason, reminiscent of what we saw back in Daf Beis and Gimel. Misham Shaktu. You know the reason why in Almana gets married on a Thursday, and the first act of intercourse is on Friday, Thursday night, because of Shaktu, again, that the Chachamim were concerned with the dignity of each and every young girl, each and every Abbas Yisrael. The Tanya, we learned in a Bryce, we 10 lines from the wide lines of Heyam and Aleph. Why do we say that Almana gets married on Thursday, and has intercourse on Friday again, meaning Thursday night? For what reason? Because if you're going to say they could be together earlier on Thursday, we're nervous about. They're going to have the wedding on Thursday morning. Thursday afternoon, this Almana, this woman that was already married, is going to be with her new husband, and then Lamachar by Friday morning, Friday morning, like, okay, great, this wedding was beautiful, I'm going to work today. And that's disastrous. This woman is Bas Yisrael. She needs the dignity deserved to her. She needs to have a day to spend with her new husband. Chazal were concerned for each and every girl that we want that the husband is at least there for 3 days. Of course, by a first-time marriage, like we saw yesterday, there's 7 days. But for a second-time marriage, you want at least 3 days. How do we ensure that? We want Chamishi b'Shabbos, Erev Shabbos v'Shabbos. And the way to ensure that is what? To say, get married on a Thursday, but don't sleep together till Thursday night. And like Rashi speaks out, what does that gain? What that gains is that you can have the Chima Mabiyah, you can have the Chiba Abiyah, like Rashi says, 10 lines from the bottom. You can have the incredible love that is generated from them being together. And when that happens on a Thursday night, Friday morning, he's not just going to get up and go to work. Friday morning, he's still reeling from that incredible Chiba that he had the previous night. So he's going to stay together with her on a Friday. And therefore, you had Thursday of the wedding, Friday they'll be together, and then there'll be Shabbos as well. Ask the Gemara, we just had 2 different reasons that we just quoted. We had a reason of a bracha, that the bracha, the Adam, the bracha that Hashem gives on Friday is better. And then we had the reason of Shaktu. The Chachamim want every girl to have the dignity. So ask the Gemara, Ma'ika bein bracha l'Shaktu, what's the difference? What practical nafkamina is there between these 2 answers? Now you know what the difference is. Adam batal. Person doesn't go to work, so now we don't have any concern that he's going to wake up the next morning and go to work. So he'll be allowed to be with his wife early on a Thursday, but because of the reason of the bracha of Adam, we wait till Friday. Inami Yantav Shechalios Erev Shabbos, Yantav and Erev Shabbos, and then again, we're not nervous he's going to go to work on a Friday because it's Yantav, but the other reason would still stand. And that is the end of part number 1 of today's shir, the Besula getting married on Wednesday, and now we learned another din from our Mishnah. Not only do we know Besula Nes'eis B'Ravi on a Wednesday, so that they go to Bezdin on a Thursday, but now we know that when should that first act of intercourse happen? On Wednesday night, not on Wednesday by day. And similarly, the Amana that gets married on a Thursday, when should that first act of intercourse happen? On Thursday night, not on Thursday day, either for the reason of Shaktu, either for the reason that we want each and every girl to at least be together with her newfound husband for 3 days, especially the Kana Chachamim, or the reason is that we're nervous, or the reason is, that we want them to get the special bracha of Adam, the bracha of that Hashem gave on a Friday. Says the Gemara, now once we're on the topic of the brachas that are given to new couples, says the Gemara, Darish Bar Kabar Gedolim Sadikim Yaiser Ma'aser Shemaim V'Aretz. The actions of the righteous of Sadikim are greater than the actions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu of Shemayim V'Aretz himself. Deal b'Ma'aser Shemayim V'Aretz, when it comes to having Ksiv Af Yodai in the singular Yasta Eretz V'Yamini Tavcha Shemayim. When it comes to the creation of the world, there's one hand seemingly of God creating the world. But V'ilu b'Mas Yedim Shal Sadikim, on the first wide line, when it comes to the action of the righteous Ksiv, Machaim L'Shivtacha Balta Hashem Mikdash Hashem Karenu Yodecha in the plural. So we see that the actions of Tzaddikim are even greater than the actions of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hey Shabav Liachel, there was a Babylonian there, Rav Chia Shemayin, his name is Rav Chia, and he said, no Raya. What does the pasuk say? Yishav is Yodav Yitzaru. What do we see in this pasuk? We say Yodav in the plural. This pasuk is referring to Hashem creating, and it's in the plural, 2 hands. Answers the Gemara, Yodai Ksiv, there's no Yud in the singular. V'Ksiv Yitzrai in the plural, again referring to Hashem. Amram Nachba Yitzrai Yitzrai Etzba'Isav. It's referring to the fingers of God. Says the Gemara, it's not referring to the 2 hands of God that created, but the different fingers that were involved in creation. Meisvei asked the Gemara, 1 second, on that which Bar Kapara just said, Hashamayim Misabrin Kavod El Umase Yada Magid Rakia. Says the pasuk, the heavens declare the kavod of Hashem, and the Maise Yadav Magid Rakia tells over the Rakia, the firmament. So what do we see in this pasuk? Again, we see in the plural, Maise Yadav, 2 hands. Hachi Kamar Maise Yedehem Shal Tzadikim Mi Magid Rakia, who tells over the wonderful acts of the Tzadikim, the Rakia, the sky itself. Umayniu Matar, and how does the sky? How does the heavens tell over the act of the Tzadikim? By matar, by bringing rain. Of course, is reminiscent of all the Gemaras and Tainis that we learned, how the Tzadikim are able to bring rain through their good deeds and their tefillos. Now, once Bar Kapara says one din, we bring another, 2 lines from the bottom. Darsh Bar Kapara, my dechsiv. What is the meaning of the pasuk? That you should have a yasid on your ears. Al tikri aznecha, rather al oizanecha on your ears. Meaning, we could have read the word azinecha referring to your weapons, but rather we read it referring to the ear. That what? Shem yishma adam davar sheinahagan. If you, God forbid, hear something inappropriate, you hear lashon hara or something else that you should not be hearing, what do? Is you turn over to Hayam and Beis, yaniach etzboi ba'aznav, stick your finger in your ear. That's the yesed, the finger, the peg that should shove in your ear in order to prevent you from hearing something inappropriate. Ever wonder why your fingers sloped? Why are they like pegs? My timer, says the Gemara. If the reason is that you want them to be separate one from another, and each and every finger has a different function. The 5 different functions of the finger. We have the first finger, which is the zeres, which was used to measure the chayshin of the Kohen Gadol. We have the 4th finger, one more time. We have the little finger, which is the zeres. We have the 4th finger, which is the kamitza, as we've spoken many times, as the last finger for the kamitza. We have zu'ama, the middle finger, is the amma, the distance for the middle finger to the elbow. We have the pointer, which is called the etzba, which is used to sprinkle the blood. And then we have the thumb, which is the gaidel. So says the Gemara, what's your question? We see what the 5 fingers are for. Elamata mishupa kiyasidas. You're asking, why is it sloped? Why is the finger of a certain shape? You know why? You can put your finger in your ear. And on a similar vein, says the Gemara, Tanat lines on the top of him and base. Your ear is hard. But the little lobe on the bottom, the little flimsy little guy over there, Raka is soft. You know why? If you hear something inappropriate, you can take that little piece on the bottom and you could shove it in your ear. That's why it's soft. Tana Rabbanan similarly says the Gemara, you should never let your ears hear idle matters when they shehain nachvais techila, your ears are going to be singed. First, le'ivara, if you don't hear the right thing, a bit of a segue due to Bar Kapara, all the different Maimrei Chazal of how careful you have to be that which enters our ears. We have our fingers to block our ears. We have the little flimsy guy in the bottom of our ears, that part the woman put earrings on. We have that little guy called the aliyah to be in the ear. How careful we have to be with that which goes into our brain. Says the Gemara, Ibayilahu, going back, all the way back to Beis Amud Aleph, the Basula, this virgin, this woman who never had relations. When is she Nis'eis B'Yom Revi? For what reason is she Nis'eis B'Yom Revi? Because if there isn't any dam Basulim, if there isn't any blood, the husband could come to Bezdin. But now asks the Gemara, we said, starting today's daf, that the first act of Bia, the first act of intercourse, should not be on Friday night, should not be on Shabbos. Says the Gemara, Ibayilu, Ma'u Livo B'Tchil B'Shabbos. Let's explore this area. Are you allowed to have the first act of intercourse on a Shabbos? What's the question? Do we say, meaning, we know for sure that this woman is a Basula. This woman is supposed to have Dam Basulam. There's supposed to be blood. The blood of virginity that's supposed to come out during the first act of intercourse. So what's exactly is the question? Explains the Gemara, where is that blood? Where halachically do we view that the Dam Basulam are inside the woman's body? Do we say Dam Mifkad Pakid or Chabure Mechbar? And let's let Rashi, who so eloquently explains what exactly the shaila is. Says Rashi, about 15 lines to the wide lines, Mifkad Pakid, Kemoi Pikadain, like a deposit, Kanas Va'oivmid, it's sitting there and waiting, Ve'enoi Nivla B'Doifnei Arechem. Those are the words. The first up, whenever we have a question, we have 2 parts of the question. Is it this or is it this? The 2 stadim of the shayla. So says the Gemara, do we say that the blood of the dam is mifkad pakid? That it's not absorbed into the wall of the woman's rechem, in the wall of the woman's uterus. Rather, what is the blood? It's sitting there, it's waiting, sitting there right there. Meaning, do we say that the blood is just sitting there? It's like a door. The blood is sitting there, you open the door, the blood comes out. If that is the case, is there any problem with doing that on Shabbos? No. You're not making a chabura, you're not making a wound. What's a wound? I take my finger, I slice my finger. What happens? The blood inside squirts out. That's a wound, that's a chabura. But if there's blood just sitting there, and all I do is I open it up and let the blood come out, I didn't make a wound on Shabbos. So do we say that the blood inside a woman is mifkad pakid? It's like a pikad and it's a security, it's sitting there and waiting and there's no problem to take it out on Shabbos? Oi, chabure michbar. Or do we say no, that it's absorbed into the walls of the woman, it's inside the rechem, and now, through the first act of intercourse, what happens? That act of penetration rips the wall, and it causes the dam to come forth. If that's the case, then of course it's forbidden on Shabbos. Why is it forbidden on Shabbos? Because you're making a chabura, you're making a wound. Those are the two parts of the question. And now, as the Gemaras very often do, we take each part of the question, and we now minimize it, down the tree. On the side of the question that says that it's mifkad pakid, the blood sitting there and there's no problem to take it out. Ask the Gemara 1 second. L'damu tzarich v'shari, is the act of intercourse just to get out the blood and it's mutter? Or maybe what happens, we know that a woman is made into a complete vessel during that first act of intercourse. What is the reason? Because the blood is removed. When the blood is removed, what happens? It makes an opening into the woman. It makes a pesach, it makes an opening. So ask the Gemara, what are you doing during this act of tashmish? Are you just getting out the blood? So it's allowed because the blood's just sitting there. Or do we say no, that you're creating a pesach? And Rashi, 10 lines from the wide line, says, it's like binyan, it's like building. There's different ways of building. You could build by taking a hammer and nail. You could build by breaking open a hole in a wall. Or you could build by taking a woman and making a hole inside of her, making a kli inside of her. And that's what the reason would be forbidden. So again, do we say the blood is sitting there or the blood is absorbed? If the blood is absorbed, it's forbidden. If the blood is sitting there, it's mutter. If you're going to say the blood is sitting there, ask the Gemara, during the act of intercourse, are you just getting out that blood and it's mutter? Or do we say no, you're creating a pesach, you're creating a keli, you're building the woman, and therefore it's forbidden? The Gemara continues. If you're going to tell me that all you're doing is getting out the blood, and therefore it's mutter, but 1 second, you are creating a hole. You are creating a Pesach. You, by default, what is happening? You are building over here. But what's that called? It's happening memela. It's happening on its own. So now, is that allowed? Is it allowed to do something that is permitted? And by default, a secondary act that is not permitted happens. What's that called? Halachic Rav Shimon Damar Davar Sheino Miskavin Motor. That's a davar she'eino miskavin. Yes, many people are wondering, wait, it sounds like a psik reisha. What's the difference? Okay, this is a very large, lengthy and difficult sugya, but let's just get the Gemara at the face value. Says the Gemara, you want the blood, so it's mutter. You're creating a pesach, you're creating an opening, you're building the woman. That happens with meal, it happens on its own, and perhaps do we go like Rav Shimon, who says davar she'eino miskavin is mutter? Oh, look, Rav Yehuda davar she'eino miskavin is aser. And now we continue. If you're going to tell me that we're going with Rav Yehuda, and the fact that the act of building happens inevitably, an inevitable act of building, a davar she'eino miskavin is forbidden, says 1 second. Is it an act of destruction? Building isn't always usher. Building is only usher if it's constructive. But if it's destructive, the act of building is kilkol, then it's mutter. And that is the shayla in which the Gemara leaves unanswered. Before we answer, it says the Gemara, we have a second way of learning that which we just said. Now we take the other half of the story. Do we say that the blood is absorbed into the woman and therefore it's forbidden because you're making a wound, you're pulling out the blood like cutting your finger and therefore it's usher? Ask the Gemara 1 second. Why is it forbidden? Because you want the blood. You're having tashmish, you're having intercourse, you're not thinking about that blood. You're doing it for anah, and therefore v'shari, it's mutter. You doing it for that now for the benefit, and therefore it's mutter. Wait, but the blood is inevitable. The blood comes on its own. So do we say again, Halachic Rav Yehuda, therefore it's forbidden? Halachic Rav Shimon, and it's mutter. Halachic Rav Yehuda, that's aser. Make kalko bechaburo 1 second. Maybe it's an act of destruction, so it should be mutter. Or metagim bechaburo. It's an act of destruction. Who b'makalka Halachic Rav Yehuda. Oh, and we don't have the next page, and we'll pick up from here in the next year. more. The Gemara is going to say, Allah Rav Yehuda, Allah Rav Shimon, and then eventually we'll answer the Shaila in the next year, Mirza Hashem.